The bus hissed to a stop beside the fog-choked valley, its tires sinking slightly into wet gravel. She stepped out, camera swinging from her neck, a grin tugging at her lips. The villagers had warned her, "Don't film the river after dark. Don't mock what you don't understand." But she only laughed. The air felt heavier here, the sound of running water threading through the silence like a heartbeat. She followed the sound, her boots squelching on the mossy path, until the trees parted, and she saw it. The river, wide, still, silver as glass. And then, just as she lifted her camera, the reflection rippled upward, not sideways, upward, as if the water had drawn breath. A cold shiver ran through her spine. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw faces inside the current. What if this river isn't flowing? What if it's watching? The inn smelled of damp wood and smoke. She sat near the fire, replaying her footage. Every frame ordinary except one. Just before the clip ended, the water rippled upward again, freezing her in place. The locals kept glancing her way, whispering in the language she couldn't understand. Finally, one old man limped closer and placed a trembling hand on the table. He pointed at her camera and muttered a single word that cut through the murmur. "Hunger!" She tried to laugh it off, but when the fire crackled, the sound reminded her of rushing water. Outside, she swore she could hear the river calling her name. Muth. Oh, that night she couldn't sleep. The wind outside carried a rhythm like breath, like words forming beneath the murmur of water. She opened her window and saw the river glinting through the trees, silvery even in darkness. The current moved too smoothly, too alive. She lifted her camera, zoomed in, nothing unusual. Then, a flicker. The reflection of the moon bent sideways, and for a second, it looked like someone was standing in the water, staring up at her window. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. But when she blinked, the river was still again. Morning came pale and brittle. She decided to confront the superstition head-on, to film the villagers talking about the so-called river's hunger. But when she stepped outside, the entire village seemed to avoid her eyes. Children were gone, doors locked, and even the dogs refused to bark. Down by the riverbank, she found offerings, flowers, coins, and something else. A photo. The image showed a smiling family, but half the faces were smeared away by wet streaks. The water lapped quietly nearby, as if mocking her. As twilight settled, she returned to the water one last time, determined to prove it was just a trick of light. Her camera rolled, capturing the darkening river. The surface looked calm, too calm. Not a leaf, not a ripple. She crouched, whispering to the current as if daring it. "Show me." For a moment, nothing. Then, beneath the reflection, a hand brushed against her shadow, not on the surface, but from below. She stumbled back, her breath ragged, camera still recording. The hand lingered, pale and still, before sinking away into the dark. The next morning, her camera wouldn't turn off. The red recording light blinked on its own, battery somehow still full. She played back last night's footage. Her own reflection blinked twice before she did. It felt impossible, yet the proof glowed on her screen. The air inside the inn seemed to tighten around her. The wooden walls creaked as if exhaling. Outside, villagers whispered near the riverbank, their voices low, mournful. When she stepped out to ask, they fell silent, every gaze fixed behind her. She turned and saw wet footprints leading from the door toward her bed. Mira entered without knocking, her face pale, her voice shaking. She told her that the river had claimed another villager last night, a fisherman who crossed at dusk. "It remembers," Mira whispered. "It takes those who mock." The words hit her like a stone, cold and final. She wanted to argue, to rationalize, but then Mira showed her the fisherman's boots, dripping wet, left on the steps of the chapel with no one inside. The sound of rushing water grew louder, even though the river was miles away. She decided to visit the chapel, seeking answers or maybe just comfort. The villagers avoided the building, its doors swollen from years of rain. Inside, it smelled of iron and decay. Water stains crawled up the walls, forming shapes like reaching hands. She spotted a journal on the altar, names scribbled in pencil, half of them crossed out. The last entry was dated 2 days ago, signed by the fisherman. As she traced the damp pages, droplets fell from the ceiling, cold as ice. When she looked up, the wooden beams were dry. She brought the journal to Elder Soren, demanding explanations. His hands shook as he flipped through the entries, his lips moving silently over the names. Finally, he told her the story. A long time ago, the villagers had dammed the river to mine its bed for silver. The ground cracked, the water vanished for 3 days, and when it returned, it wasn't water anymore. "It listens," he said. "It waits for arrogance." She wanted to dismiss it again, but when the floorboards creaked beneath her, a wet handprint appeared at her feet. That night, thunder rolled over the mountains, and the rain came down in sheets. The river swelled, rising fast, breaking over its banks. She filmed from the doorway, her camera catching flashes of lightning over the raging current. Between strikes, she saw shapes moving inside the water, silhouettes of people, hundreds of them, faces drifting upward like memories trying to surface. The wind screamed through the valley. Then, just before the clip cut out, her own reflection appeared in the river again, this time smiling back at her. When the storm passed, silence felt heavier than the thunder. She ventured out, her boots sinking in mud. The river had swallowed half the road, and debris floated where houses once stood. She picked up her camera. It was still recording, though she hadn't touched it. On the screen, a message flickered for a second before vanishing. "Do not forget us." Her breath caught. She rewound the clip. The message wasn't there anymore. The river shimmered beside her, gleaming like metal under the clouded sky. For the first time, she whispered an apology, and the water rippled, almost as if it heard her. She returned to the chapel, driven by a strange pull. The journal lay open where she'd left it, but new pages had appeared, damp. Handwritten entries describing her. "The outsider mocks," one line read, "but the river remembers her name." Her pulse raced as she flipped through, each page wetter than the last, ink running like blood. She heard a drip behind her. Then, another. When she turned, the altar was dry, but the cross on the wall bled clear water. She ran back to the inn, desperate to tell Mira, but the place was empty. Candles still burned, wax running down untouched plates of food. On the counter lay Mira's necklace, a small pendant shaped like a drop of water. It was still warm. She backed away slowly, her camera trembling in her grip. Then, from upstairs came the sound of dripping. Slow, deliberate, rhythmic, like footsteps, but wetter. Her throat went dry. She pointed the camera at the stairwell, heart pounding, whispering to no one. "Who's there?" She climbed the stairs, each step groaning under her weight. The corridor smelled of river silt and decay. At the end, Mira's door was ajar. She pushed it open and froze. The window was shattered inward, wet footprints circling the bed. On the wall, written in what looked like silt, were 5 words. "The river keeps its promises." Lightning flashed, illuminating something glistening beneath the bed. A small handprint, still dripping. She backed away, heart hammering, but the whisper followed her. "Stay." She ran into the night, rain returning in thin sheets. The village was silent now. No fires, no movement, just the sound of the river. Her camera captured flickers of faces between raindrops, too fast to focus. When she reached the bank again, the river seemed wider, stretching into the trees. Voices rose from beneath the current, murmuring in dozens of tones, pleading, warning, remembering. She knelt at the edge, tears mixing with rain. "What do you want from me?" she cried. The answer came in the rippling reflection of her own lips whispering back, "You!" By dusk, the village had vanished under fog. Only the tops of roofs jutted through the mist like broken teeth. She moved through it slowly, flashlight trembling, her camera recording every breath of darkness. The air buzzed, faint whispers rising from the ground. The river was louder tonight, restless, alive. At the crossroads, she found Elder Soren kneeling in the mud, eyes closed, lips moving in prayer. When she asked what he was doing, he didn't look up. "It's waking," he said. "It knows you now." He told her the truth at last. The river wasn't cursed. It was a memory, a wound that never healed. Every time someone mocked its hunger, it claimed them, keeping their reflection forever beneath the surface. "You saw them, didn't you?" he whispered. She nodded, tears mixing with rain. "Then they've seen you too." Before she could respond, a low rumble shook the earth. The river swelled in the distance, glowing faintly, moving toward the village like a living tide. The ground split open near the chapel, water gushing through the cracks. Villagers screamed somewhere in the mist, their voices quickly drowned. She ran, clutching her camera, mud splashing up her legs. The river wasn't just moving, it was chasing, spreading like veins across the earth. When she turned back, the chapel collapsed, its bell tolling once before, being swallowed whole. In the flash of lightning, she saw silhouettes walking upright inside the current. Men, women, children, their eyes open, their mouths whispering one name, hers. She found shelter inside the old mill at the edge of the valley. Its wheels turned slowly, though no water reached them. She set up her camera to document everything. A trembling confession for whoever might find it. "The river isn't water," she whispered to the lens. "It's memory. It's punishment." As she spoke, droplets began forming on the camera's lens, even though the air inside was dry. The droplets gathered, slid downward, spelling one word before vanishing. "Stay." A deep vibration rolled through the floorboards. Slow, rhythmic, alive. The camera shook in her hands as the walls began to weep clear water. She stumbled outside, and there it was. The river had risen to her door, its surface black and glistening under the storm. She pointed the lens toward it, whispering, "If you want me, come." The water responded, rising like a single towering shape, forming what almost looked like a human outline made of liquid light. It leaned toward her, and in its surface, she saw her own reflection smiling. By dawn, the storm was gone, but the river stayed swollen, thick, dark, and too still. She awoke on the bank, mud caked to her hands, camera still running beside her. The footage showed things she hadn't filmed. People standing in the fog, faces blank, their eyes turned toward her sleeping body. One of them looked exactly like her. Same hair, same jacket, only the eyes were wrong. Empty, washed out, like glass marbles, staring through time. When she turned back to the river, she saw her reflection waiting, lips parted, whispering words she couldn't hear. She wandered the ruins of Kalemore, calling out for Mira, for anyone. Only echoes answered. The air felt hollow, as if sound refused to travel. Then she saw them, faint silhouettes walking along the opposite bank, dissolving into mist. Every one of them looked familiar. The fishermen, the children, Mira. Their eyes glowed like candlelight beneath the surface. When she whispered Mira's name, the reflection lifted its head, and for the first time, the water spoke back. Mira's voice, gentle and hollow. "Come home." The realization hit like cold water. The river wasn't hunting her. It was showing her. Every face beneath its surface was someone who'd vanished, believing they'd escaped. The current didn't consume flesh. It kept memories, trapping them between worlds. "It remembers everything," she murmured. "Even us." As she watched, her reflection shifted again, her lips moving on their own, whispering words that came from nowhere. She pressed record, leaning closer. The reflection whispered softly, "You've already drowned." Panic clawed at her chest. She stumbled backward, gasping, but the river followed. Not the water, but the reflection, stretching across puddles, mirrors, even the camera lens. Every surface now showed her face, whispering secrets she couldn't unhear. She smashed the lens, but another reflection appeared in the broken shards. "You're already part of me," it said without sound. The wind rose again, carrying the smell of rain and metal, and the ground trembled beneath her boots. The river was no longer confined. It was everywhere. She ran to the mountainside above the valley, desperate for distance. From there, she could see the entire river, glimmering like a silver scar through the forest. It pulsed faintly, like veins beneath skin. Her camera blinked on again, uncommanded, pointing itself toward the valley. On the small screen, she saw herself, standing by the riverbank below, smiling, waving slowly. But she was here, miles away. The camera zoomed in on its own until her double's mouth moved and spoke, the sound breaking through static. "We never leave." Then the camera shut off. The valley was quiet again, too quiet. The kind of silence that listens back. She followed the sound of a low chant toward the riverbank and found Elder Soren there, standing ankle-deep in the current. He held the old journal open, pages flapping in the wind, his voice raw as he spoke names into the water. Each name echoed faintly, answered by ripples that shimmered like silver veins. "It must remember," he told her, "before it forgets who we are." She didn't understand until the river rose and took his reflection first. The river swallowed him without a sound. One moment he stood there still reading. The next, the water folded around him like silk. She screamed, running forward, but the surface was already calm. Only his journal floated, spinning slowly. When she lifted it from the water, the words were gone, every page blank. Behind her, voices whispered her name, again overlapping until it became one endless, echoing call. She turned. The fog moved like it was breathing. She stumbled back toward the inn, but it was gone, swallowed by mud and silence. Only the upper floor jutted out from the flood like a memory refusing to sink. On instinct, she waded inside, the water freezing around her knees. Everything was warped. Walls bowed, furniture floated, candles burned underwater. Then she saw Mira's pendant glimmering near the ceiling, suspended by nothing. When she reached up to touch it, the water rippled, and Mira's voice whispered in her ear, "You can still join us." She felt the pull then, gentle at first, like a current brushing her ankles. It grew stronger, wrapping around her legs, her waist, her breath. The river wasn't dragging her down. It was calling her in. She fought against it, gripping a broken beam, screaming for it to stop. But with every heartbeat, the water glowed brighter, and within its depths, she saw them. Mira, Soren, the villagers, all watching her, faces serene, mouths moving together. They weren't drowning. They were waiting. She understood, finally. The river didn't take people. It remembered them, held their stories so they'd never fade. The elders' warnings weren't about death, but transformation. She whispered into the current. "Then remember me right." The water surged upward, surrounding her in silence. The camera, still floating nearby, caught the last image, her body dissolving into silver light. When the river stilled again, her reflection remained, smiling softly, eyes alive, waiting for the next traveler who wouldn't listen. Days later, the storm cleared for good. The valley lay quiet beneath a pale sky, its silence untouched. A group of rescue workers arrived by helicopter, searching for signs of life. They found the ruins of Kaelmore, houses half buried, the chapel roof gleaming beneath shallow water. No bodies. Only one thing floated near the center of the river. A camera, blinking weakly. Its red light still alive. When one of the men picked it up, the recording began to play on its own, a voice whispering softly beneath the sound of running water. "Do you remember us?" They gathered around a camp table, drying the device under a lantern's glow. The footage began with fog, then Lena's voice. Calm, almost reverent. "It's not a curse," she said. "It's a memory too full to contain." Her words played over flickering images of water, faces, and flashes of silver light. The rescuers watched in silence until one of them leaned closer, squinting. In the reflection of the river on screen, something moved behind Lena. A figure in the fog, smiling. None of them noticed when their lantern began to dim. By morning, the team was gone. Their campsite stood untouched, coffee cups half full, gear still humming. Only their reflections rippled faintly in the river beside the tent. The camera, once again half submerged, recorded everything in silence. Fog crept back across the valley as if reclaiming it. The screen flickered one last time, showing Lena's face smiling gently. "Stories never die," she whispered. "They just change their shape." Then the feed cut to black. Weeks passed, and Kalemore was declared abandoned. The government sealed the roads, labeling it a landslide hazard. But travelers still came. Hikers, explorers, thrill seekers. Some said they could hear whispers near the barricades. One recorded something strange. A reflection waving from the other side of the fence, wearing a torn black jacket and holding a camera. They thought it was a prank until the reflection raised its hand and pointed toward the valley. Then the river's sound grew louder, though there was no river in sight. Now the valley is quiet again. The river runs silver beneath the trees, calm, eternal. But when the wind stills and the mist settles, the surface becomes too perfect, mirror flat, waiting. Sometimes, if you lean close enough, you'll see them. Faces half forgotten, eyes watching, lips mouthing the same question. And if you whisper your name, the water might whisper it back. Because the river never forgets. It only waits.